What's up guys, JACKNIFE here, and today we're going to be breaking down my track Nonstop from my Nonstop EP on Boombox Cartel's label Monta Records. This has been an absolute staple in my sets. It's had some great support, Griffin, Dr. Fresh, Boombox Cartel, list goes on. It's been great. It's been really fun making the high energy bass house stuff. I've always made bass house, but I feel like the last few years I've really kind of changed it up. So I'm really stoked to kind of bring this little breakdown for you guys. Just this is the short version. If you head over to my Patreon, you get the full length. I just uploaded 56 Serum 2 presets as well as a bunch of free tracks from my record label. So if you go there, you get a bunch of bonuses. We're uploading every fortnight and sometimes weekly. So strap in, let's get into it, and I hope you enjoy. Alright, first things first, when I'm organizing drums for bass house and stuff like that, they're fairly simple, you know. If we listen to them now, like just super bouncy by itself. So we got a hat. First things first, we got a hat. That's just gonna kind of give it that extra little bit of hype. I feel like with these higher energy bass house tracks, you kind of need to have some sort of hi-hat or extended like white noise or something like that. Followed by a kick. Nothing special again. Still, like by itself, it's not like crazy clean, but in saying that, it works. You know, a few things I will explain is just over my experience over like 10-12 years of producing is never process things by themselves unless you're doing like a sound design session. It's a lot different, but I find when you process things by themselves, it loses its spot in the mix in like the song as a whole. So ideally, mix your things into your tracks while you're listening to them. It's just a few mistakes I made earlier on, trying to do things, make them really clean and lost dynamics, and you know, end up cutting the balls off the track, etc., etc. Adding on to that, we've got a clap. So this one's more of a high clap. Alright, followed by a lower clap. And I've actually got no processing on that because I felt like most samples have already been processed. You know what I mean? So sometimes just adding or taking away things, it's not the best. This one has a little bit more processing on it. Well, it's actually not. It's just sent to a channel. So there you go. There's two claps there with no processing on it in a track. So it fits well. All right, so moving down to the last layer of the drums. We've got just a general snare build-up. Good thing about these snare build-ups here is when you do things in MIDI, as you can see in FL Studio, we've got the main channel rack here. We've got a main swing of about 40%. So what this is going to do, every second and fourth bar, so as you can see, like there's four bars in one bar there. On the second and the fourth, that's where it's going to activate swing. So it's going to slide that off 40% to the right. So that's going to give it like an extra bit of groove. As well, to add on that, I've done a little bit of velocity control down here. As you can see on the bottom, every second snare is pulled down. And every third snare is pulled up a little bit. So this just gives like, it gives it a bit of groove. And so we're going to move down to the brass stab layers. You know, we've got a little bit of automation and stuff up here. I do have automations everywhere right now, so it's a little bit hard. And as you can see with the hats here, I've just switched them from offbeat to hitting, and that just gave that section that little bit more hit. So, as well as, you know, a bit of super important ear candy right here, so a bit of a glass break. Just simple, just something like that. And that's not even processed, you know, that's not even on anything, that's just there for the fun of it and the ear candy. So all that together sounds really cool, you know, you add the drums in. But as you can see with the brass over here, we got layer 1. I just want to make sure that this sidechain is going to work for us, so I'll just turn that off right now. All right. And we've got a sub layer down here. I want to add that in. There's a sub layer. And it's obviously going to sound a little bit blown out there. But I'm going to solo these. And this is another, again, you'll notice that the layers by themselves are not that clean. Second layer, third layer. And obviously you put the sidechain back on because it sounds a little bit hectic without it. So it sounds really cool. Then again, it's not crazy, right? But it sounds cool. So then again, I've added more things down here. You can go check out the vocals. The vocals will be further down. Sounds a bit like this. You notice that like the vocal kind of masks any of the bad stuff that's going on, and it works really well together. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed in my production, is it's really hard to get an idea going, and then you've really just got to layer things for it to work. Because right now, without that vocal, it sounds a little bit bare, right? All right, so we've wrapped up talking about the effects here. There is a few more effects further down in the track, but for now we're going to move on from that section and come to the drop leads, and I'll tell you how I did these. We got the sub pattern, which is just very, very simple sub pattern. Very, very simple, and that was originally a preset, as well as the brass stabs. And what I did is I originally got the brass movement, so I'm pretty sure it's one of the shadow presets. I did a little bit of synthesizer there and created the pattern, and that paired with this flute, you know, both have very similar characteristics. The thing with the brass, it doesn't have so much of a hard attack, where the flute kind of compensates for that and has like that hard attack. And as you can see with the flute, it's not currently, it's not currently sitting right on the lines. It's actually just shifted off a little bit. And I feel like that's what helps the hit in this track and the groove. And with the sub is exactly the same patch as the brass. I've just basically turned it into a sub, which allowed me to keep the exact same groove. As you can see, all the little sub bits are pulled back just a little bit off the line, and I felt like that gives so much more characteristic to the sound and to the track itself. When everything's really robotic and on the lines, it can get really boring really quick. So get weird with it, start moving things around, and you're going to come up with some really cool stuff. Just need to get off the off bar. Sounds like this. Oh, this is just one of the layers. So there comes with 3 layers right now. I think there's a 4th layer further down. Right now, this is a very clicky, very simple, nothing to it. It just gives the lead a little bit of click when it hits. And then we got the bass. It's sitting pitched up right now because of the automation. I think a big part of like the groove on this track is these little boys here, like the little glide notes. You take away these, like it sounds alright. It sounds alright, but it doesn't sound as good as this. So little glide notes is basically just causing it to pitch down, pitch up, whatever you want to do, as well as some automations just to keep everything a little bit more fresh and interesting. And my favorite part is like using the mod wheel as like a vibrato. Vibrator, absolutely incredible effect. If you're not using it, get onto it. It's amazing. I use it a lot on my tracks, and it's really simple. I can show you exactly how to do that. If you're just going to get a serum, where are we? So open a serum 2, and just say you got your general layer just here. Right, you go into the effect, go into the matrix, right, and you're going to go, say LFO1, then we're going to go main tuning. You could almost do, I think it's the global, it's the main tuning. And then we're going to just do 1%, aux source, mod wheel, right, so, and then what you're going to do, you're going to speed up the rate on that, and it's going to be like, right, and what that does, it's so easy to do. It doesn't have to be on the mod wheel. That was just like a way that I did it originally. You can do it on any of the macros. So I think originally why I did it on the mod wheel was because all my macros were taken up by other things. So that's a really, really interesting thing. And if you've got a really kind of cool lead going, you don't know what it needs, I think the main tuning mod wheel effect is insane. You can do it on, if you've just got a layer, it depends on what you want to affect. Sometimes if you've got a really nice gap in between your sounds and it's like a really high top layer, you can add just the main tuning mod wheel vibrato onto that lead only. But I like to do it on the master pitch. It just seems to really carry the sound a bit. Something that I've used, like a technique that I've used for a very, very long time, is automating the octaves, like the FM octave, and it just gives it the second half of the drop a lot more feel and a lot more texture, and just to switch up. That's what I always preach is, every 4 to 8 bars, just constantly switching it up with something, not so much that it's going to lose its flow, but just enough to keep the listener like intrigued in what's coming next. And for the second drop leads, I've got the flute pluck in MIDI. It was just something I did. I was just trying out some drop ideas. And I've also got this layer. So basically I've combined the first drop and the second drop with the leads. So the second drop lead now sounds like this in the third. Sounds very plain by itself, but with the automations and the pitch, and as you can see the pitch below it, it's just causing it to kind of wave and dip. And like I was explaining, I think yesterday, is like a guitar. There's always bending, there's always string wobbles, there's all sorts of things going on, right? So when I trying to kind of implement that into my music, so then it feels a little bit less robotic, because it's when you're making electronic dance music, everything's very robotic, it's very on the lines, it's very this, that. All right, that's everything about the leads, and we're going to move on. So I've just got the double note at the top. It just gives it that little bit of extra, again, ear candy. It helps everything. So don't be scared to experiment and really kind of just throw notes around. As long as they're in key and they're working. I guess even then, if things are out of key but they sound good, it doesn't really matter. I always say, there's always a certain point that you go to before you kind of just go, oh, it sounds good, But obviously following a key scale will dramatically help your production. If your groove's off by, with the just say you bring in some hi-hats in your track and there's major groove on those hats, those second and fourth bar on like a single bar is going to be shifted. But the problem is, which sounds good, but if you start layering your track without that swing, there's going to be like this microscopic kind of offset between the clicks of the drums and the clicks of sounds and vocal chops. And it's going to make your track sound really messy without sounding too kind of offbeat. It only takes like the most fraction of a second for it to sound messy. So make sure everything's on time. If you're going to do stuff and have really swingy drums, you're going to make sure that you've got swing on absolutely everything. Otherwise, it's going to ruin your mix dramatically. So a bunch of those vocals there. We got the main vocals here. So that's like one of the main reggae calls or like jungle calls. And then we've got like the actual main lead vocal here.
Stop with it, unstop with it. Select. Stop with it, unstop with it.
Without the processing, it sounds like this.
Stop with it, unstop with it. Select.
Super dry. And again, just the way I do things. I've got the Gold Party to bring out some frequency. You got the Valhalla Supermassive. That's a bit of my sauce there. So
stop with it, unstop with it. Select. Stop with it, unstop with it. Select.
It kind of blows the transients out a bit, and it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I felt like it worked in this track. A little bit of side widener as well, just to kind of widen like the sound in general. Wanted to take off a bit of the balls and the vocals, a bit heavy in the low end, and I feel like just bringing that depth up on the OTT just kind of I don't use OTT a lot. I don't use it on as many leads. Like when it comes to low end heavy leads, I never use OTT. I find it just completely takes away the balls of your track. But for leads without low end, it can really tighten things up and make it sound good. So vocal processing, as you can see, dip in the lows, a little bit of a punch where the frequency needs to be more dominant, and a little bit in highs, but I'm also ducking the highs a little bit, about 1.5 dB, just because it can get a bit like essy at the end. A very small amount of reverb just to kind of throw around it. And we've also got an automated decay. I always do this. It's like one of my favorite things to do. And as you can see down here, I've got like the delay, sorry, not decay, delay. So a bit of delay here. So when the vocal finishes, it's getting a little bit of reverb. And that just kind of goes throughout the whole track, as you can see. So just coming into the final part of the track as well, it's just like little random bits like reverse crashes. Then we got like another reverse one over here, which is just a Dorizo impact. Shout out to my boy Dre. See, that's just an unreversed version of the other one, and we've also got like some lasers, signs. Again, just little bits of ear candy, nothing that important that you really notice, but it makes a lot of difference when you have attention to detail, you know. Thank you guys for tuning in for my little breakdown on Nonstop. I was really stoked to go through this and show you guys how I made this track, because it's a very big project. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of things to touch base on. So if you guys want anything else, you know, obviously I'm going to be posting on the Patreon all the time. If there's anything in detail of what you guys want, you know, this is more of a breakdown, a walkthrough, rather than like a sound design tutorial. So appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys next time.